On June 14, 1969, a 6-year-old boy named Dennis Martin was playing hide-and-seek with his family in the Great Smoky Mountains. His father watched him walk toward the tree line, his bright red shirt highly visible against the green brush. But when it was time for the kids to jump out and scare the adults, Dennis didn't appear. The forest had completely swallowed him up. 3 days later, searchers found a chilling piece of physical evidence. Deep in the mud, miles from where Dennis vanished, they found 2 distinct footprints. One was barefoot, the other perfectly matched the size 2.5 Oxford shoe Dennis was wearing. The tracks led directly toward a nearby creek, and then they simply vanished. The timeline grew even stranger when investigators received a report from 7 miles away. Right around the time Dennis went missing, a family having a picnic heard an enormous, sickening scream echo through the trees. Minutes later, a disheveled, feral-looking man burst out of the brush, moving at high speed, carrying something slung over his shoulder. What followed was a massive rescue operation, lasting 16 days. FBI agents opened case files, and heavily trained Green Berets straight from Vietnam scoured 56 square miles of harsh mountain terrain. But they found no trace of his clothing, and no remains were ever recovered. A 6-year-old boy completely ceased to exist. The sheer scale of this failure, the way a child can vanish under the nose of the federal government, suggests that Dennis Martin didn't simply get lost. It suggests a terrain where the standard rules of a search operation no longer apply. We are looking at the Appalachian Mountains. This massive, ancient ridge generates more unexplained phenomena per square mile than anywhere else in North America. The geography is plagued by highly specific, bizarre events. In the 1950s, a creature dubbed the Beast of Bladenboro methodically drained local animals of their blood with surgical precision. Further north, red orbs known as the Brown Mountain Lights hover over the hills at night, completely defying modern atmospheric science. As we see in this historical portrait, indigenous groups like the Cherokee have long documented these regional anomalies. Their oral histories warn of the Moon-Eyed people, small, nocturnal beings who only emerged when the sun went down, indicating this land has actively produced strange encounters for centuries. Locals have a specific name for the areas where these events concentrate. They call them thin places. The working theory is that in these exact geographic pockets, the normal rules of physical reality break down, allowing things to slip through or disappear entirely. It is easy to write off folklore as tall tales or mass hysteria. But when missing persons cases and impossible sightings cluster around the exact same coordinates year after year, we have to ask, what if the locals aren't crazy and something buried deep in the physical bedrock is actively warping their reality? The Appalachians endured 4 mountain-building events where tectonic plates violently collided. This geological trauma damaged the Earth's lithosphere, leaving it abnormally thin beneath the mountains. This structural weakness created a massive disruption in the local magnetic field, known as the Brunswick magnetic anomaly. Now, look closely at the sharp, faceted edges of this quartz crystal. The Appalachian region is loaded with massive, dense deposits of this specific mineral.
When immense tectonic pressure squeezes those quartz deposits, it triggers a reaction called a piezoelectric field. The immense mechanical stress placed on the rock actually generates localized, highly active pockets of electricity and magnetism. The folklore aligns directly with the geology. The legendary thin places where hikers disappear and compasses spin wildly correspond with these highly active, naturally occurring electromagnetic hotspots. The environment is charged with magnetic fields, but to understand the monsters, we have to look at how human biology reacts to that energy. At Laurentian University, Dr. Michael Persinger conducted a series of neurological experiments to test exactly that. This schematic illustrates his primary tool, the God helmet. It is designed to apply weak, targeted magnetic fields directly to the human temporal lobe, which is the region of the brain responsible for sensory input and spatial awareness. The laboratory results were staggering. When exposed to these specific magnetic frequencies, 80% of test subjects reported experiencing periods of missing time. They felt intense out-of-body sensations, hallucinated encounters with spiritual entities, or dark presences in the room.
The electromagnetic frequencies Persinger generated in his lab are an exact match to the piezoelectric fields radiating naturally out of the Appalachian bedrock. The entire mountain range functions as a giant, naturally occurring God helmet. When a hiker wanders into one of these high-pressure quartz zones, the Earth's magnetic field physically manipulates their temporal lobe, inducing severe disorientation and forcing them to hallucinate the impossible. Imagine you are an early settler living in a cabin just like this one. You are miles from civilization, surrounded by dense timber, and you unknowingly walk across an active geological fault line. Your temporal lobe glitches. You lose an hour of time, and you feel an overwhelming, terrifying presence right behind you. People like the couple in this vintage portrait had no scientific vocabulary to process what was happening to them. They didn't know about tectonic pressure or electromagnetism. They only knew that something in the woods had actively hunted their minds. These communities reacted by translating their terrifying neurological experiences into local legends, giving physical shape and intent to the invisible environmental forces altering their perception. The mountains became a folklore factory. Native American myths of underground spirits blended with Celtic second sight and Germanic pagan healing rituals. Every hollow developed its own unique framework for explaining the unexplainable. A localized brain glitch caused by a magnetic surge was eventually recorded as an attack by the Bell Witch. A recurring atmospheric refraction bouncing light through a cool mountain valley became mythologized as the alien origins of the Brown Mountain Lights. These stories served a practical purpose. By mapping out where the witches and beasts lived, the folklore provided a framework for avoiding the most geographically disorienting hotspots. Appalachian folklore is a brilliant human adaptation. The monsters lurking in the woods might be fictions created by our own biology, but the ancient, charged environment that forces the human mind to conjure them is entirely real.